Hey, and welcome to the highlights of episode number 109 with Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. Some of my favorite parts of this episode were when he shares his conscious parenting tips and how we can inspire our children. I also love when he shares about the Toltec wisdom and tradition, which is something I had never heard of before. But there is so much more wisdom and inspiration that you get in the full episode. So, to listen to the full podcast and to get all the info in the show notes, head to melissaambrosini.com/109 right now. Miguel, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you on. Can you tell us about your journey and what it was like growing up with your dad as this big spiritual teacher?
The nice thing about being my father's eldest child is that I got to witness my father's own personal transformation. For me, the experience of growing up with my father is that I got to grow up with my father. When I was young, he was Dr. Miguel Ruiz. He was the neurosurgeon or general surgeon, and he was very much a professional doctor. And I would say that's good 8 years of my life, the first 8 years. And, he was a disciplinarian. He was expecting straight A's and that kind of type of thing. Then somewhere in his own life, he had an experience, an epiphany or an aha moment, whatever you want to call it, something he couldn't explain. He had a car accident. And in that car accident, he experienced himself leave his body and, save a bunch of people. And that's the story he would tell us. But it was something that he couldn't explain. Being a man of science and Western medicine, this didn't fit. So he went to the person he trusted, which at the time was still my great-grandfather, Don Leonardo, and my grandmother, Madre Sarita, who are the teachers of that time of being the spiritual heads of the family. And you can say they restarted his apprenticeship with them, because when he was young, much younger, in his teenage years, both Don Leonardo and Sarita taught him. But, as teenagers go, and I count myself as included, we rebel against it in certain ways. It's a tradition in the family to rebel against the tradition of the family. And when he had this aha moment, he engaged it. And for several years, he was both a medical doctor, but in the weekends, he would always spend it with my grandmother after my great-grandfather passed away, and continued his apprenticeship. He would spend every weekend working with my grandmother in that practice. And you can say that in my life, you can say there was a parenting shift. He wasn't as much as that disciplinarian, or he stopped really demanding that straight tens. That's the grades. That's the perfect score, you can say.
Would you say that your grandparents are your biggest spiritual teachers?
Yes, my grandparents were that old Mexico spirituality of stories and shamanism and all these beautiful stories. Because my grandmother was born in 1910, so she was that generation that experienced the Mexican Revolution, and her father as well, and her grandfather was the first Mexican in the family. Before that, there were new Spaniards, I guess. That's like the new Spain before the war for independence in Mexico. But they brought with them the old country, the old stories, the old myths and fables.
For someone who doesn't know what the Toltec tradition is, or has never even heard of the Toltec wisdom or philosophy or tradition, can you please explain what it is?
The word Toltec is a Nahuatl word that in English means artist. I'm an artist. If I translate the phrase, the Toltec art of transformation, into 100% English, it means the artist path of transformation. I am an artist, and the canvas for my work of art is my life. So imagine that canvas that changes continuously with every stroke of the paintbrush. Or you can say in this matter, with every decision, with every choice, with every moment that I've experienced. It can go from the most perfect, beautiful, harmonious dream to the most perfect, horrendous nightmare. And it goes back and forth between the two, always evolving, always changing. And the question my grandmother always asked is, do you control knowledge, or does knowledge control you? If I let my beliefs control me, then my beliefs paint that picture. And it's not really my life. It's my belief system or whatever ideals or conditions I've learned or been subjugated to. But if I control knowledge and I'm aware that I'm the one who controls my yes and my no, that is my free will, my perception, that the energy that animates this body, that animates this mind, is in fact the instrument I use to create this work of art, then I can create it and co-create with life this harmonious dream if that's what I want. And if life gives me a hard moment or a heartbreak, then I can make the most perfect, beautiful, melancholy work of art that tugs at our soul, and I can learn from that. In a nutshell, that's the basis of the philosophy.
So how do you inspire your children? How do you make it relevant for them?
My wife and I, we come from two different traditions. We just actually funny. We just did the one of those heritage things. You turn in your DNA, you spit into something, and it tell you the genealogy. And with our kids, with our son, and her ancestry comes from England and Germany, and very much European. And my tradition comes from Mexico and the Mesoamerica, and of course Spain. So we look right there, and we see not just the abundance of culture that is within our own family, but we also understand the traditions that come with it. Not only the Toltec, but the Catholicism, as well as the Mormon tradition from my wife's side, and even the Jewish tradition from her side. And all of a sudden, there's this huge, rich combination of ancestors coming together to create this beautiful child. So it's been a beautiful way to see it, or at least an interesting way of finding that balance of my wife teaching our kids the values of her family, which come, immediately from a place called Salt Lake City, Utah, and mine that comes from Tijuana and San Diego, in the border town between the United States and Mexico. With the four agreements and turning into the four conditions is a very important thing. And knowing that the four agreements, the difference is that the word agreement represents the action of saying yes. That's what an agreement is. I say yes to that. I'm free to say yes to taking it personal, and I'm free to say yes to not taking it personal. That's what personal freedom is. I accept myself just this way. And with that awareness, knowing that I'm free to say yes to taking it personal, and if I take it personal, it's because I want to take it personal. Even with that awareness and accepting that that's who I am, I choose not to take it personal. And that's when that agreement becomes alive, because I used it to inform my choice, but I'm the one making the choice. And that right there is what we teach our kids, to teach them the confidence in themselves to make choices and to respect themselves, to experience the consequences of their choices.
Do you think rebellion is part of the journey? Or how can we inspire our children not to rebel?
I actually have to say rebellion is part of the journey, as tough as it is for us a parent, because my son is 12, my daughter is 10, and they're both turning 13 and 11 respectively this summer. So puberty has hit, and I can tell you right away, everything I knew about parenting went out the window. Me and my wife are starting from scratch. It's a whole new game. And that's the thing about parenting. We don't know what we're doing. We're doing the best with what we've got. And if we've got conditional love, then of course we want to placate that rebellion. We want them to do everything we tell them to do. If we want them to be ready for the world, that rebellion is an important thing, because what's happening in that rebellion is that they're learning to assert themselves. So forget about the terrible twos or the terrible eights. It's the terrible teens, because now they know how to talk. And not only are they not talking, they're engaged. They're doing their rebellion in the world. And all of a sudden, that bubble that we built for them as they were growing up burst, because we realized, or at least I realized, that me and my wife did, that if we keep them in that bubble, they're going to suffer. For example, my son, who has autism, we went to a conference not too long ago about, what about the transition between, he's in middle school right now, and we're looking into what's going to look like into going to college or going to work and all that kind of thing. And something that one of the teachers told us, that at the age of 15 or 16, because they're special needs or whatever, we put a life jacket on them, trying to protect them, because, of the autism or whatever other special needs other parents have with their kids. It's the most important thing for us to eventually take off that life vest, that life jacket, and let them swim on their own and trust them and give them confidence that they can do it. To a certain degree, it's the same teaching that that movie taught us. So that message was delivered to us in two different ways. One, pop culture through a movie, and the other through workshops created by the school district here. And they both resonated the message, and you can all say that reaffirmed it for me, that our job as a parent is to let them have confidence in themselves in order to survive in the world without us. They're not ours. We brought them into the world, but they are their own individual. So that rebellion, when they rebel against us, is that they're trying to be free. They're trying to make their way in the world. They want to create their world. They want to become their own artist.
How do we love and accept ourselves unconditionally? Because this is something that I hear a lot, women especially, hating their bodies, loathing themselves. How can we love and accept ourselves unconditionally? And why is it so important?
Well, it's very important because our personal freedom is attached to it. In creating our own life and enjoying life. That's the part that matters. It's easier to understand unconditional love if we understand what conditional love is, which is domestication. If let's say that the perfect version of me as a man, of me as Miguel, is to be 27 years old with a full set of hair and weighing 170 pounds or something like that. I look at myself in the mirror and that's just not the truth. I'm 42 years old. I weigh 185 pounds and my hair is definitely receding. That's the truth. But if I believe that image of perfection, that in order to be perfect, I have to be completely free of any flaw. If I look at myself in the mirror and I'm not that image of perfection, which is 170 pounds, full set of hair and being 27 years old, then I'm going to hear that internal judgment, that diatribe that's going to say, you fat bleep, you old fat bleep, you bold old fat bleep. And that judgment that we hear, that judgment is as an instrument we use to reject ourselves, all because we didn't live up to this image that we think is perfection, which is to be completely free of any flaw. And that is something learned. Once we become aware that that's happening, that we're using our word in that way, that we're using our word to subjugate our will, to reject ourselves, we have a choice to continue to believe it or to let it go. So you could say at this point, let's just say that I've been living it through whole ways. Those beliefs only have power because I've said yes to them.
What do you attribute your success to?
My family. You can say my family, we co-create this. My father taught me, and he paved a very good way, a way that my grandmother started in her own way, and a path that her father and her great-grandfather. I stand on the shoulder of giants. My success in parenting has led me to be the father of a 12 and a 10-year-old. We've made it this far. We've kept them alive, and that's a success in itself. And now we're in learning to face the new obstacles in their life, but it's their obstacles, not mine. And that's the beauty of it. They are facing their own obstacles, and I'm helping them to figure out how to face it. And when they learn how to face it, they'll have confidence in themselves. That's a success.